Just a quick one to refresh our brain memory on what we did last week. So no, I don't want us to see the answer. So uh, okay. We'll just ask few questions and let's see. Oh, I need to put it in such a way you don't see the answers. I don't know. Not getting the hang of this thing. Okay, maybe in our break time we'll do it. Let's just wrap up. Um, it would have been good to have you guys just look through. Okay. Okpe took us last week through the zero trust concept. Um, I like the tagline that Microsoft uses on the trust concept, which is trust no one, verify everything. That language is not good when it comes to relationship, but when it comes to technology and security, if you really want to ensure that any infrastructure, especially with reference now to Microsoft infrastructure, any infrastructure that you're responsible for ensuring compliance and security, one of the things you want to do is trust no one and verify everything. The truth is that's the only way you can achieve explicit security. And Okpe took us through the 6 foundational pillars of security. Just to refresh our memory, this particular view is what will help us through the other sessions. Because remember, when you want to do security, when you want to do compliance, you have to start with identifying where you are securing. And so if you look at the 6 foundational pillars, the first guy who is on this pillar is the identity, because for you to be able to assess anything you need some means of identity. And if you don't assess anything, then you can't even need security, because what are you securing people for? You're only securing people from something. So for instance, your house, there's a burglary proof in your window, there's a burglary proof probably in your door, and then a gate. So what's happening? It means that there's somebody that either lives here or there's something that is inside there. And when you want people to come in, you want them to identify who they are. If you don't put any perimeter, it means that there's nothing in there or there's no one there, and so there's nothing to assess. So um, identity is one of the key pillars. So in today's class we'll be looking at the Azure Active Directory. Now, don't forget that we had mentioned that this session is specific to Microsoft. But some of the concepts we are going to be teaching, the truth is, if you take yourself out of Microsoft, put yourself in a Google space, this zero trust methodology is the same. If you take yourself into Amazon space, the zero trust methodology is the same. Any environment, even in your day-to-day life, if you want to be able to ensure that things are done properly, you have to build your security framework around this methodology. So while we are going to be talking more of Microsoft platforms, the concept and foundation you learned last week is the baseline to help you to be able to do security and compliance on any environment. Please, okay, because I'm presenting, I won't see if anybody's in the lobby. I don't know why my own presentation is not giving me side view. So you help me out. Thank you. So to just a rundown, she also took us through to understand perimeter. So when you say identity, like I mentioned, there has to be access to something. So we understood what the identity, and the 4 pillars of identity. So there has to be administration of identity, there has to be authentication, there has to be authorization, and then there has to be auditing. Because if we say that the identity is the starting point of which you assess anywhere, and then that determines how we need to secure the environment, there are 4 pillars that you need to pay attention as to how identity. So how do you administer identity? How do you give people access? So if you see in some estates today, I'm going to try as much as possible to make this real life so that it can sink in. In some estates today, you cannot access someone if the person didn't approve. So it's either the person gives you a code, right? And then when you get to the gate, the security looks through that code, verifies that you're the one, and then allows you in. So that's administration. That estate has decided, identified that they would administer identity through codes, through access codes. In some estates, if they want to know the people who live in that estate, they sell stickers. And so they've said that we will identify people who live in this estate through stickers. So in any security framework concept, you must find a way to administer identity. And that's what is going to take us to understand Microsoft's own way of administering identity. And then Okpe took us to understand that once you have identity, next thing is to authenticate it, meaning that you need to validate. Yes, I have given you this identity, but I will need to validate it. So you will see that you will have infrastructures that are responsible for administration of the identity, responsible for the authentication. And then after you have authenticated, I need to authorize you that you are allowed to go to this place that you want. And then finally, I need some proof to be able to see who and who has done, because it's not every time you're going to be sitting down there. So you see that in some environments, they'll say keep a security log. After a while, there are some reviews of this security log to see how many people have come in here over time, because it helps you begin to think, has anybody breached the process that we put in place? Or are you saying that people don't access here? Or is there any need for this infrastructure that we have here if people don't come to it? So why is this application up and running? If we found out that in the last 6 months nobody's using it, why are we keeping it up and running and spending money on power and application? So the 4 pillars of identity helps you in understanding the zero trust methodology. That's why identity is the first guy on this pillar. And then you must understand the 4 pillars of managing an identity, because it is the identity that helps you tag to an employer. So when we bring it back to when we bring it out to applications and devices, it is the identity that will help you tie to an employer, that will help you tie to the device, that will help you tie to the location, and that will help you tie to the application, then finally help you tie to whether you're a customer, you're the one providing the service, or you're the one consuming the service. And then Okpe took us now to understand Microsoft's own way of identification. So Microsoft has what they call the modern authentication. Okay. And the modern authentication is how Microsoft now does its own authentication and authorization method. Okay. And then we're now beginning to see how more of technical terminology. So when you say you have a client and a server, what is a client and a server? Your mobile phone today is a client. Google that you're going to is a server. You take your mobile phone and then you do what? You initiate XYZ and you go to a server and you consume. Your Microsoft Teams app is a client. Microsoft server that has this Teams app that gives us this ability to be able to view, have meetings is the server. The ability for you to go there and consume, if you remember this diagram, the ability for you to go there and consume, you required an identity for you to access the infrastructure and access the app. But however, remember, in identity, you had to go through this 4 channel: administration, authentication, authorization, and then there's some auditing happening. So we looked through the modern authentication. Please just note your questions. And then we explained about federation too. We explained that the modern day authentication has also helped us to be able to build federation. So Microsoft knows today that, okay, I've given you an identification, but you want to access certain things that probably don't reside with me or reside with me. So I need to be able to federate. I need to be able to agree with somebody so that anytime you want this thing, okay, you can easily access it using the authentication that I have put in place. So you see in some organizations, they have the static code. Anytime you're going there, as long as you flash that code, you would be able to enter. So they have federated and know that with these ones, we don't ask them for this. We just know that once we see anybody coming from here, we have a trust relationship with them and we will allow them. So when you see the federation, the concept behind federation is to be able to build trust between platforms. I'm sure a lot of you today will remember, will see certain websites you've gone to, and they will tell you sign in with your Google, sign with your Microsoft. So they don't stress you, telling you to create fresh username and password all over again. What they say is, we have built a federation with this platform you want to access, and we trust that their own means of identity and authentication will help us identify you and validate you. Um, And then we progressed into the concept of Active Directory. So whenever you hear the word Active Directory, it is Microsoft's own identity management. Whenever you hear that word Active Directory, now we are now bringing it back home because we're now talking Microsoft. One of the things Textilers hopes to do as they mature is to not be product and solution centric. However, if we say we want to help people to be able to achieve success, we still need to narrow them down because technology is vast. So that's why in this course we're focusing on Microsoft. So when you hear Active Directory, remember, identity, Microsoft Active Directory is Microsoft's own identity provider. So if we say that the first pillar to ensure security is identity, we need to have somewhere that this identity is built on. And so Microsoft uses Microsoft Active Directory. Now, for some of you who are already in the workplace, who are already into IT, or who are already working with the IT department, you will hear what you have: Active Directory Domain Services. That is this guy, Active Directory Domain Services. This is focused more on on-premise. So prior to the whole cloud and bizarre and whole cloud aura, Microsoft had the Active Directory domain services that organizations used on-prem. So I'm an organization, I'm trying to build an identity provider. Microsoft says deploy Active Directory domain services in your on-prem servers. And when we use the term on-prem servers, we're referring to your own data center that you built. So that's your on-prem server. And then companies began to build Active Directory domain services to identify services, application, groups, people. But however, we are now migrating into cloud, and with the whole cloud adoption, Microsoft introduced what they call the Azure Active Directory. The Azure Active Directory. So when you hear Azure, Azure is what Microsoft has used to identify their cloud services. That's where they build everything on the cloud. However, inside Azure, there are different components. So we'll be looking at the Azure Active Directory because that's Microsoft's identity provider for cloud services. Okay. So in today's course, we'll be exploring the services and identity types that is in Azure Active Directory. Now, remember, we have gone through the zero trust methodology, which is what any security person, any compliance person, any audit person should have at the back of their mind as the methodology that they want to use to ensure security governance in any organization. Where we don't trust anything, we verify. And then the first pillar of that methodology is identity. So you want to be able to say, nobody can compromise anywhere if they don't know how to enter. So the first thing is, how have we given access? How are we allowing people access? We can break this to different roles. If you're an audit person, you want to find out, how do people access this application? How do people connect to this application? How does this application connect to people? If you are a control person, you want to say, how are people accessing this? How do people access it? Are there other ways that they can access it outside this way? How do we ensure that we can track who has accessed it? If you are the one managing the application, you want to say, how am I going to access this? How am I going to be able to manage this platform? How am I going to connect to it? How am I able to ensure that this application can talk to other dependencies? And so we'll be looking at Microsoft Azure Active Directory. At the end of this, you'll be able to describe what Azure Active Directory is. You'll be able to also identify the types that Azure Active Directory supports. Now, Microsoft Azure Active Directory is Microsoft's own cloud-based identity and management services. I've said that lots of time. That is Microsoft's own. You have AWS has their own, Google have their own. Different cloud services have a way that they identify and give access to services. Now, an organization that uses Azure Active Directory, now this is Azure Active sitting in the center, can begin to create identity for devices, for their on-prem applications, for their business partners, for their public cloud services. Okay, with the Azure Active Directory, you can create different identities that can allow you track people. Remember the four pillars: administer the identity, authorize the identity, authenticate it, and then still audit it. With the Azure Active Directory, you will have one single point now The good thing with Azure Active Directory is that you can have one single point that every other application can talk to. For those who are a bit technical, you remember that when we were doing when the on-prem applications are being deployed using the Azure domain services, you it would be very rare to allow you to, it's not best practice to say that you had one Active Directory server. Reason being that when it goes down, it means that identity cannot authenticate. So most organizations for Active Directory on-prem will never have one server. So if you're an auditor, never allow anybody to tell you that they have one server. If they have one server, then part of what you should be flagging is that you have a risk and dependency there, because it means that if that identity server goes down, nothing can authenticate. You cannot remember the four pillars. You can't administer, you can't authorize, you can't authenticate, and you can't even audit. So when people had Active Directory domain services on-prem, the baseline were two servers. Just in the event if one went down, they could still have access. With the Azure, is different because Azure is now a cloud service. We're just taking that platform. Microsoft has put in enough redundancy where we don't have those kind of downtime. So depending on the kind of agreement you have with Microsoft, most enterprise organizations running 99.9% uptime, because Microsoft understands that without identity, you would not be able to ensure that security framework that you have promised your clients. So Azure Active Directory would enable you to manage even guests. So most times with the on-prem, what you find people doing is that either they share passwords with a consultant, either they share passwords with consultants, or they create service accounts that they cannot track who's using it. With Azure Active Directory, you can onboard employees, you can onboard guests, and everybody can have their own sign-in, and you can delegate the resources that they need to see. Also, Azure Active Directory has created a single identity platform where you can manage both your on-prem applications. Microsoft has done it in such a way that there's an integration with the Azure Active Directory and your on-prem Active Directory, so that if there are cloud services that you need to consume, you can integrate with Azure Active Directory and begin to authenticate using your on-prem Active Directory. Now, remember when we talked about the trust, you begin to understand that as we progress. Azure Active Directory will help you protect these identities and the credentials, and you will be meeting your organization's governance requirements. Because remember, Microsoft at the forefront remembers the four pillars. So we want to administer and we want to audit. So Azure Active Directory allows you to administer, allows you to audit. Now, Microsoft 365, Office 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, all this online subscription automatically are provisioned on Active Directory. When we begin to see other identity types as we progress, you will see how Microsoft allows for federation with other services and how you can use your Microsoft identity to authenticate to other platforms. Any questions? Okay, so the Azure Active Directory identity types. Microsoft Azure Active Directory manages different types of identities. When we say identity, remember we had in this slide made you to understand identity from, you can connect to your devices, you can connect to an employee, you can connect to on-prem apps, you can connect to cloud apps, you can connect to your business partners, your customers, right? Now, the Azure Active Directory has different types of identities. So when we come to technology, I'm a user. A user can either be an employee or can be a guest. But I want to be able to say these are employees, these are guests, but they are what? They are users. They require a username and a password. So Azure Active Directory enables you to classify users. Okay, and then these people can have their own identity tied to them. So you see some organizations, the way they have done it is first name, last name. Some people will say first letter of your first name and then your last name. Some people will say your first name and then the last letter of whatever nomenclature and structure you choose. Microsoft Azure Active Directory will allow you to administer profile users and give them that identity. And then Azure Active Directory also allows you to manage devices. Devices is another means of identity. Do you guys agree? Yes. If you, I'm a user, if I have a username and password, how am I going to use it? I'm not going to sit down. I don't think we've gotten to that point where I close my eye and put my username and password in my mind and automatically I say I want to log into my banking application. No. So I have to use a device. It could be a laptop, it could be a server, it could be a printer, it could be anything. Any piece of hardware, it could be a mobile device. Azure Active Directory allows you to identify devices now to the point where you can know who owns this device, you can say where this device is, you can tag this device, you can put restrictions. Remember the 4 pillars. We want to be able to administer identities. And so we will identify different identities. A device is an identifier. Oh, the internet banking app. It's an application. Where is it? How do we identify the internet banking application? We look for servers. That's an identity. Service principal. You can think of this as an identity for an application. I will call this more of on-prem. We used to call it service accounts. So when you're configuring, for those who are real technical, when you're configuring applications, those applications, when you set them up on those servers, they need to run. And most times they need service accounts, especially if they need to talk to another application. For on-prem, one of the things you have seen over time is that people create service accounts and make them generic. So you want to be able to manage service accounts. So today you will see how we have moved into using the privileged identity manager and things to manage service account. But service accounts, service principal, when we move to cloud, that's the new terminology, are another means of identity. So you could see something called ADRMS underscore A. ADRMS, and you're like, what is this? This is not a user. Our nomenclature for users probably is first name dot last name. What is ADRMS? And then they'll say, oh, it's the service account. And you'll be like, okay, service account for what? You want to be able to say what this service account is. Microsoft allows you to build service principles and tie them to the application that is used for. And then you can define who can access that app and what resources. And then we have the managed identity. The managed identity is also a type of service account that Microsoft also uses to connect to resources. So Microsoft has been able to break service account and then managed identity. Okay, there are also types of service account, but these are ways that you identify. So service account, managed identity are used to identify applications, resources, while your user and devices most times are used to identify people or also applications and resources. Whatever the type of identity that you have, Microsoft is saying that with the Azure Active Directory, the 4 pillars of identity is covered. You can administer, you can authenticate, you can authorize, and you can also audit. All right, we will do all the demos at the end of the class. We will show you how the Active Directory is, how you can create users. How am I doing with time? Okay. Let's do one demo before we go on. I don't know how many of you were able to set up your demo that Okwe guided us, but I'll use mine. So if you're an auditor, you're a compliance person, you're an IT person, you are new, you don't even know anything, and you're just like, I want to do security, I want to be able to do security for Microsoft 365 solutions. I'm an auditor in my organization. They use Microsoft 365. What do I do? I'm a control person, I'm a compliance person. Where you learn to manage Microsoft 365 solution is on where we call the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So depending on the privilege that you have been given, you'll be able to see. So in this instance, I'm a full administrator, so I can see everything. If you're an auditor, I'm sure you will see everything, but you might not be able to make changes. If you're a compliance person, the same thing. If you're a control person, the same thing. Or if you're also an IT person, but probably a junior role, you might not be able to. But I'm a full administrator on this tenant, and so I can be able to see everything. Now we've talked about that Microsoft's own identity provider is Azure Active Directory. So from the admin center, we can navigate to look at it, the Azure Active Directory, and it will open for us. Another way you can also go into the Azure Active Directory is by going straight to Microsoft Azure. So from any browser, if you type portal.azure.com, you automatically land into Microsoft Azure Active. Now, this is because I have set up my demo. If you haven't, it will ask you to set up. Microsoft gives you a free trial of free $200 dollar credits that you can use, and you can play around this till it expires, and then you can but at least that. So for those who want to practice this, for those who are new, no career, but you want to be able to say, after this program, I want to be able to put on my CV that I've had experience using Microsoft Azure, using Microsoft 365, doing security and compliance. Trust me, take advantage of this free 200 credits and then play around here. And there are certain things that you can do. The same thing, take advantage of the demo that Okpe taught us, which I can take us through the class again at the end of the class. For those who have not set up their account, we'll give you 90 days free into the Microsoft 365, and you automatically have a free Azure that can allow you to play around with some of these things and get familiar with it. Now, this is your Microsoft Identity Management. So remember, the first pillar of identity is I want to be able to administer. So for those who their role are to administer, because in some organizations you must have segregated or segmented this role, this is where they come. They come to users, they want to create a new user. So these are all demo users. They don't exist, right? Fictitious users. In this organization, I have 17 users. I want to create a new user. All you need to do is new user, create new user, whatever the nomenclature in your organization, if it's first name, last name, if it is surname, whatever your policy was for identity management, you will be able to put that here, put the name, last name, whatever group. So this is where you assign group. Oh, the person is in the security group, person is in the HR group, the person, whatever group. With the Azure Active Directory, you can also block signing. So let's assume there's been a breach. You can from here automatically block signing, and that person will not be able to use this account until you have investigated whatever that breach is. You can even tie this to locations. So in some organizations, they can say, I do not want this user to log in using anywhere. So imagine where you create accounts for consultants. Okay, you can say I don't want them to log in from anywhere. I don't want anybody to log in from China. Once you're in China, once you're in Pakistan, I don't want you. This is the only, this staff is supposed to only even work from this region. The moment this staff is in America, we want to know if we want this staff to be able to log in. These are some of the value when you tie logins to location. It's some of the things you can use it to achieve. When you tie a login to a particular location, when you begin to do things like conditional access as we go on, you see the value of this. So you can tie a credential to a particular location, the job title, the department, the company name, the manager, whoever the person reports to, and that's it. Once you're done, you save, and the account will automatically appear here. So if we go through again this user's profile and we edit, you will see.
Sorry, Joy, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I thought I was. Apologies, I thought I was.
I don't know. Is it just me? Can anyone else see Joy's screen?
Can you guys see it now?
No. Okay, yes.
Okay, I'll just refresh. I thought I was already sharing it, but we can see it now, right?
Yes, it's up now.
Okay, let's go back. So I started by saying that the Microsoft Azure Active Directory is Microsoft's own identity provider. And if we remember the four pillars of identities, that you want to be able to administer, you want to be able to authenticate, you want to be able to authorize, and then you want to be able to audit. And Microsoft has shown us how that all of these different identities, whether it is a user, a device, a service account, the Azure Active Directory can allow you. So in this demo, I'm going to show you that you can users are created, and then the certain parameters that are put that can allow you be able to have visibility into this user. So we went through, I'll just go back again. And I said, depending on your job role, in some organizations, your role might never be to create a user. So you might not want to notice. However, you want to know how a user is created in case you need to begin to look at what are the controls we can put. So a typical user is created this way in Azure Active Directory. Of course, as you advance in technology, if you have 50 users to create, you won't be doing this. We'll have what we call script and CSVs. But for 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 beginners class, let's look at it. We want to create one user, we want to create two users. This is actually what will be expected of you, to come here and say new user, and then you see create user, invite user. We'll come back to explain what the invite user is. Create user, depending on the nomenclature, what your policy says, first name, last name, name, first letter, whatever it is, just put it here. That becomes the username, and then you select the domain of your organization, which will automatically populate here. The guys studying Microsoft 365 will go through how they had configured the domain to appear here. For you, you're a security compliance person. To set up this is not your responsibility. The M365 guys are the ones who do all the setup, and then you are able to see the Azure Active Directory. That's why when you're setting up the demo center, you see that Microsoft, when you select the sandbox, they'll just automatically do everything for you, because all of those parts, in as a security person, is not part of what you want to worry about. And then you put the first name, you put the last name, and then groups. So whatever group. So when you hear people say, "Oh, add me to XYZ group, add me to security group, add me to compliance group, add me to HR group, add me to the Women International Days group," all of those things. This is where you add groups. And then I'm saying that Microsoft Active Directory has given us some good features. So we can block a user. We can say, "Oh, we've noticed something malicious about this account and we want to block it." Or somebody has exited the organization and we want to block the person. This is where we can block a user. We can also tie a user's account to location. And I was trying to explain that when we go deep down into things like conditional access, how Microsoft has put in other security measures to ensure that the zero trust methodology functions, you begin to see the value add of tagging identities to locations, because that way we can be able to know when this identity is logging from a location that is not supposed to be, and gain visibility. All of these other things are also, remember, one of the last pillars says auditing. So you want to even be able to know this identity is tied to who. Oh, it's tied to Joy in the IT department. It's tied to Joy in the system engineering department. It's tied to Joy of this company. This is her line manager. So it allows you to put enough information that can allow you, when you start doing auditing, you begin to make sense. And once you're done creating the user will appear under the list of users, and you will see the user here. And then the good thing is that as an administrator, you can come back here and then modify. There are other things that you can edit that probably you didn't add. You can add office location, mobile number. Um, as we go on, you will see the value out of this. And then we can now assign licenses. So depending on what this person is supposed to do. Now remember, we have created an identity. We want to now be able to administer this identity. That So this is a user that has been created. We want to administer this identity. We want that anything we think this identity should do, there should be a central place that we can do it. And that's what Azure Active Directory is. So the first pillar, in the zero trust says you must have an identity. And then the four pillars of identity says you must be able to administer that identity. So we can administer this identity here. You can see, we can say edit, we can reset the password, we can revoke a session, we can delete off this user, we can come here and assign the user different to a group, assign the user to an application, assign the user to a particular type of license. We can see the devices that this user is tied to, and we can say we can either enable or disable the device. We can look at the authentication method that has been assigned. As we go on, you will see that we can see the type of roles. So you can see that we are now administering this user. So anything that needs to be done on this user account, it can be done. So if you need people to do certain things in your organization and user, and they say they cannot, you can come back and verify, because Microsoft has made sure that this user account can be administered irrespective or administered based on what your requirement is. Okay. The next one is, let's, any questions so far?
Yeah, sorry, I know I'm going to take a step back, please. What's the definition of zero trust?
Okay. Sorry, I know last week something came up and you couldn't join us, so this is it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes. So the foundation of security, we like to work with the concept of zero trust methodology. We say to ourselves, trust no one, verify everything. And I said to my class last week and this kind, I said, in relationship, we don't like this kind of word. Uh, for love relationship, we want to trust, and we don't want to verify everything. We just trust you. But in security, the truth is, if you need to be very good with security, compliance, and governance, you must trust no one, and you must verify everything. And it writes on the six pillars, the six foundational pillars of identity, device, application, data, infrastructure, and network. And Okpe took us all through this last week. We would I did a recap, but in the course of this is the foundation. So in the course of now going deep into Microsoft security and compliance, you will begin to see the importance of this.
Okay.
And then if you look under where it says verify explicitly, least privilege access, assume breach, what is telling you is that these are the guiding principles. So once it is a identity and a device, you want to really, really verify. You want to be
Okay.
sure. You want to be sure that, so you must put in things in place that make sure that before you say yes, you are sure that this identity is the identity that you want to give access to or you want to allow. The same thing with a device. And then when you get to application, you want to verify. However, you want to make sure that the application has the most least privileged access, only
Yeah.
what it needs. You don't just
Mm.
want to say, oh, give it full control, give it admin. So as a security person, if you're looking at an application and somebody says it has admin access, why? You say, no, it needs admin access to run. Hello, can you explain why does it need admin access to run? What are the things that it is going to do that requires? So as a security person, if someone is telling you that, you want to begin to ask, what does this application do? Because if I know what this application does, then I can know whether the application really needs full access. On databases, people give them full SQL no. What do you need to do? You need to do read, right? We give you read access. You need to do read write. We give you read write access. You need to do read write SQL. We give you read write DB. When you say DB owner, DB security, you are giving the person all the power,
Yeah.
and you are beginning to lose your trust. And then when you
Mm.
now migrate from application to data, the same thing. You want to ask, do you really need access to this data? I remember Okpe taking us through the CIA framework. We all know that today for data protection, we work with the ISO 27001 that says confidentiality, integrity, and accountability. And all of that writes off data. So you want to ask yourself, do you really need access to this data? Give me full access to this data. Why? Maybe you just need it for XYZ time. Maybe you just need it for XYZ period. And then as you migrate to the infrastructure and network, we say assume breach. Always think in your head that they can compromise us. How can they compromise us? It can be internal. It can be through the infrastructure, and the network is where the breach actually happens, is where the compromise happens. The Azure Active Directory is an infrastructure. It's just that it's owned by Microsoft. Your internet to connect to the Azure infrastructure is your network. So when you sit in the hotel, when you sit in a hotel and you're so excited to use their free net internet, ask yourself, what am I supposed to access? Am I doing my internet banking on an internet network that I don't know? Or I just want to do Facebook and Instagram, which is okay? You must always assume breach. You sit
Okay.
in the airport, Wi-Fi, assume that it's possible someone is here and sniffing the network. So I'm excited that I have free internet, but what do I want to do? Remember, we want to trust no one, we want to verify everything.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so um we've seen that Microsoft Azure Active Directory will allow us to administer It will create authentications for us that we can use, and then it will verify it, and then we can audit. Now, external identities in Azure Active Directory. We also, remember, we told you that in the identity you can also create for employees, you can create for users, but then we moved into where we talked about federation. Azure Active Directory is not stingy. I thought that Active is not a stingy, is not a stingy partner. As much as the Azure Active Directory has said, trust no one, verify. It's not a stingy partner. So he understands the need for you to collaborate. He understands that you have platforms that you want to work with, right? So there are two different types of Azure AD external identities. So we call one the B2b collaboration. B2B means business to business. Business to business. Now, security doesn't want to come and frustrate operations. Security doesn't want to come and frustrate business. So most times people don't like people who are in security. People don't like people who are in control. People don't like people who are in compliance. They don't like us because they feel like you're only coming to stress them. So Microsoft Azure Active Directory has understood the need to work with external, identities, and so you want to do business to business collaboration. What does this mean? This will allow you to share your app and resources with external users, but the Azure Active Directory would be the one to help you authenticate. Okay, so take for instance here, like I gave an example, this is probably a grocery store and called Woodgrove, and you want to create a profile. These guys have integrated Azure Active Directory to their authentication. Now, every application requires a username and password because remember, you want to identify. So I'm an application developer. The first thing I want to do is create a login, username and password. But in an organization, I don't want to stress people that imagine 30 applications. They have to remember username and password. They have to, for every application, create a username and password. So what do people do? Solution providers, application owners have come to know that if you already have an identity provider, don't worry, I will federate with them and I don't have to create my own identity provider. Because when you're creating your application and you are worrying about the username and password, the truth is that you are behind the scene, you are creating an identity provider. It could either be a blank database because you want to be able to identify people before they log into your application. Now, a lot of application owners are understanding that I don't have to stress myself worrying about it. I will federate with someone who will do the validation, and then I can worry about the access. I can worry about the authorization. I can worry about what the person needs to access here, but the authentication will happen at their end. I'm trying my best not to be too technical because it's a beginner's class. If we had to go to technical, we explain how this one talks here and how it links here. But the concept that we're trying to bridge here is that the Azure Active Directory is your identity management, right? And you have created users there. You can know user accounts that have been used to integrate to other solutions. So Microsoft has allowed you to be able to do that integration with other apps and still manage that identity on them. So that's why you see this group has said that you can use your Google, you can use your Microsoft, you can use your, so Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they all have the identity federation concept. So if we remember this slide that Okwe took us through last week, I always like things to come back. Yeah, the concept of the federated services, where she explained, connection between you and, in this instance here, we looked at a website. The website people have their own domain, you have your own domain. A trust has been built. So behind this thing are technical gibberish that has happened. But in a logical explanation, what has happened is that Microsoft has built a trust and federation. So when those people were setting up their websites, they connected to Microsoft to consume the B2B, the business to business collaboration mechanism. So if you're a compliance person, you also want to know how many of those kind of integrations exist in your environment. So that's where we're bringing it home to identity. Because like I said, you need to know what you want to secure. So this is trying to tell you that Microsoft allows you to do business to business collaboration. So you're going to have people come up with nice new technologies. And one of their requirements with the business analysts and the solution designers will be that they want to integrate with your Azure Active Directory. As a security and compliance person, you want to know. It is good that you know so that you can know what to check. These things happen, you can integrate. The technical implementation side is another thing, but if you don't know, then you will never look in this angle on how to secure and ensure compliance. So you need to understand that there is the ability for your Azure Active Directory to allow you to collaborate and share apps and resources with external users using the B2b collaboration. It's called one of the external identities in Azure. And then the B2B, business to customer, is an identity management solution for consumer and customer facing apps. Someone will say, what's the difference? You can connect straight to the organization, you can connect straight to the customer. So one allows the people at the back end to connect to you. The other one is telling you, the user, to use your credentials to connect. That's what you see. Any question, please? One of the things I always say to people to enjoy security, I say, the good thing about security is that my view, with all humility to every other administrator, but the good thing with security is that you know everybody's part, then you know your part, because the truth is you cannot secure what you don't know. So you need to know what the developer is doing so that you can know how to secure them. You need to know what the modern workplace person is doing, the Power BI person is doing, the Power Apps people. That's how we provide security. So I feel like it's extra work. We know what everybody other person is doing, then we know. So the good thing about security for also those people is that when they understand this, then they appreciate the work that security people do and even do it better. So they don't leave those bugs and leave those back doors open. When they know security helps them. So when they are doing something, when they are doing an integration, they know, okay, I want to optimize. Okay, and then I need a service account. I shouldn't use my personal account to do the integration, because if I do that, it means that if I change my username and password, it's going to affect this. They begin to appreciate the need of some of these requirements that the security and compliance team are putting as the foundation when they understand security. Now let's look at the concept of
Um,
hybrid identities.
I have a
So,
question. I was trying to unmute my mic, but the button wasn't working.
okay.
So the big difference between B2B and B2C is that for B2C, you can use the authentication can be done by, let me say, a third party, right? But for B2B, you are still authenticating on Azure. Like Azure is still the one doing the authentication, but it's doing the authentication for an external user. Is that it?
No, the B2B is you have your apps and you can allow it, you can decide to share it with other third-party solution providers. Okay.
So for example, you have Microsoft Teams and you want people outside of your organization, like outside of your AD, to access some.
Yes. So today
um
people are using their Gmail to access Teams, right?
yeah. So what is that? Is that
Exactly.
B2B?
That's B2B. Meanwhile,
Okay.
B2C is Woodgrove has an application and we
Okay.
want to be able to consume it using our Azure Active Directory account.
Okay. So B2C is like this, say a company creates an application.
Yes, so we still allow that. Microsoft still allows that integration. So business to customer, as B2B is the identity management solution for the customer and the consumer and the customer facing app. So Woodgrove is the customers facing app. It's not Microsoft's app. It's not even your own organization's app. But
Okay. It's
Woodgrove
an
has
app that
said
is
that
built for your customer to
yes,
use.
yes, and you
Okay.
have told them that your customer is saying, I have people who have Microsoft Identity, Google, Facebook. I don't want to worry about giving them. Those who want to create new username and password, fine. But if they have this, then it makes life easy for us because we want to be able to integrate. Today, business value is from artificial intelligence and business intelligence. So you're like, I want to be able to integrate into their, because when they use their Facebook, it helps you begin to send metadata metrics. You can be able to understand that kind of person. There's a reason for even all of this behind the scene. People don't know. It looks like easy integration, but the point is, the moment you use your Facebook, it's tied there. Your Facebook is linked. They can be able to understand the kind of person you are using your Facebook intelligence. But let's not go into that. But you're saying, oh yes, I want to be able to allow people use their Facebook to log in. I don't want them to worry about another username and password. I want to give them seamless integration. Okay, let them use their Azure Active, let them use their Google. That's B2C. So Azure is saying that we also allow those kind of things. We can allow you take our identity and authenticate on other people.
So
But
the
what is happening behind the scene, it is still Microsoft that is authenticating you. It's not Woodgrove here.
yes, yeah. Okay. That's what I wanted to ask, because
Yes,
if
what would have happened is that this Woodgrove client and Microsoft Azure, the backend configuration, there's what we call integration. Please, Okwe, correct me if I'm wrong. There's an integration that will be happening at the back, creating the service apps and the APIs that allow the connection to happen. So
so does
when the
this
person,
mean does this mean that this Woodgrove app, is it hosted on Azure?
nope,
No, it doesn't have to be hosted on Azure.
no, it's hosted on wherever Woodgrove is. They could be an
Okay.
Azure customer, they could be an AWS customer, but when they wanted to do their authentication, they would have said they want to integrate with the Azure Active Directory Federation services.
Okay, apologies guys, please bear with me. I'm just
No,
wondering,
no.
like,
Sure. That is it. That's the whole
why
essence. Let's so that we can think it out. Yes.
why would you want to, because in my initial thinking is, okay, let's assume that we have XYZ organization, right,
Mm-hmm.
that uses Azure Active Directory for their normal login to Teams and everything, right? So they now want to build, they now have this third-party application. Say they have this HR app, but the HR app is being provided by somebody else completely, not Microsoft. But they
Mm-hmm.
say we don't want our internal users to start having to log on with a new username and password. We want them to still use the same username and password that they use to log on to Teams,
Mm-hmm.
to log on to this HR app. Is that B2B or B2C?
It's B2C.
It's B2C. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now it does that application can be in your Azure Active Directory, but the real B2C is that it is not sitting with you. You're not the owner of the application. You're doing federation. You're allowing a trust relationship between you and this person using your identity.
That's what I'm saying. That sorry guys, I'm just trying to logically. So
Yeah,
what I'm saying is that
why
what's the reason? Yes, because
is
you're not
first of
using
all,
your you're
yeah,
not
the
using your
first, yeah, so the first reason is ease of authentication, identity. I don't want different identity. I don't want when I'm checking how many people are logging to HR, I'm looking for another username and password. I want to know that Joy in IT is the one who logged in into hruzuba.com. Like you said, if it is our application, even if it's not your application, even if it's not your application. That's why I said you need to understand Woodgrove, this Woodgrove guy is selling groceries. If Joy decides to use her company application to log in, it's a different thing. It is me that has chosen to do it. Woodgrove is just saying that I can allow you to do it. Microsoft too is saying I can allow you to do it. You can, as an organization, say we don't want it, so you go and block the ability to do it. But Microsoft is saying that we can allow you do these things so that you have one identity that you are managing. It's
oh
now a case by case basis. Would you allow it as an organization? It's choice. You can say you don't want to, but the world is going to a place where people want seamless integration because they want to pull data from everywhere. People want to see your behavior when you're on Facebook, your behavior on Instagram, your behavior on this. So they are, Microsoft is saying that we are allowing this kind of integrations and we can allow you see the identity that is used to do these things. We
okay.
all know that every organization has best practice. Why would I want to take my corporate organization to go and sign on for my food grocery store? But if that grocery store did a federation with Azure, it's possible. If I don't want to do it, it's choice, but it is possible from a technology perspective. Azure is saying we can allow third-party applications integrate with us. So if somebody comes to your organization and is selling a fleet management solution, like you just said, a HR application to you, you can say, okay, fine. I don't want to worry about setting up a server for this HR. You have it right. You're going to maybe create a container for my organization. That's fine. But I want when people log into here, they should use our username and password so that when we go at the back end to audit, we want to still know that it is our users. I don't
Okay.
want to see another name there and be worrying, is this phony of workplace? Because now they're using f.bello. Meanwhile, in your organization is using maybe phony.bello, and you're confused. So you say no. I still want the same username and password across all platforms. Azure says fine. That's what we call B2C. It's not your application, but we can allow you. It's our application, but we can allow you use your own authentication to log in.
Okay. Okay. I can see some hands are up. Sorry, Lauren, I think Larry's hand was up first.
Yeah, please. My the way I'm displaying, I can't see, so I need that help. Yeah, Larry, please go on.
You need to unmute your mic.
Hello,
Yes, we can hear you now.
can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes.
it's a mistake. I did raise
Oh,
up my hand. Yeah,
okay, all right.
I'm trying to remove something on the screen, so I mistakenly click on the.
Okay, okay, it's fine. I can see Ellie's hand is up. I'm not sure if it's
Yeah,
a mistake.
thank
All
you.
right. You're
Thank you.
welcome,
Good
ma'am.
morning, everyone. Yeah.
Morning.
Thank you very much, Joy. So my concern is actually around B2C. Especially when it comes to security breaches. So you have a third-party application you're connected to, and you have a disgruntled staff there that decide to say, you know what, I'm just going to put in a threat into this organization, knowing that, there's a B2C integration with other uh, customers. Now, how do you, as your own organization, how do you try to, I know you're going to have your own security, whatever, around your own organization as well, but because it's a B2C and I'm disgruntled, I know almost everything happening at the other end. So let me use an example. So you're a company, like you said, maybe like an HR solution that is cloud based, and I work in that HR company. I know you log in with your AD. I also come to support your company, right? With that, and I know almost everything. There's some companies that are so careless that they say, oh, this vendor, yes, this vendor is doing this. I'm comfortable with this vendor. So when there's a security breach from that HR company, maybe from a disgruntled staff and everything, how do you guide yourself? Because I've always thought of this, that look, I can just say I can just say, you know what, I want to destroy this company because they've been very unpleasant to me, and I'm going to have that ripple effect on all their customers because I want to really get rid of, or destroy the brand or something. You know how some people can think. So how do you guide against that? Because that's always been my fear, as in, okay, yes, as much as I have to believe and have this trust relationship, and you've also said it here too, that as a security person, do not trust anybody. So how do you bridge that gap, and how do you
Okay.
just draw that line? Thank you.
All right. Okay. Niola, don't fear. Okay. One of the rules of being a security person is don't be scared. It can be really scary doing security because, like you said, your brain begins to think. You begin to think like the thief. That's the truth. And then you begin to, like, the only way to catch a thief is to think like a thief. So you become scared at the amount of power that you are seeing is available when you begin to think security. But this is the good thing. I want to share this slide again. This guy, you see this guy, if there's nothing else, you live with SC900, live with this understanding and it will help you. The zero trust methodology, right? So yes, Microsoft has told you that they can allow you to do B2C, which is you have your a customer app and it can allow you integrate. But they've not told you that you should forget your 7 foundational pillars. Now that's your identity. What did they say? They said you should verify it explicitly. In the course of this, we will see how you can do it. So that's where we have two-factor authentication, right? So the fact that I'm allowing the third-party application, I'm doing a B2C, it does not mean that I have dropped my foundational pillars. I'm going to still do two-factor authentication because I want to verify you and be very sure. So I've allowed you to integrate with me, but I want to make sure. And when we move into application, now remember that's an application. We have done what? Least privilege access. I want to say you're only going to assess what's necessary. So I say to organization people, when you are doing your metrics for users, whether it is a normal user or an administrator user, you must begin to ask yourself, what's the level of power that we have given them? So from a security and compliance perspective, when you take identities, you want to check what is the privilege of this identity? What's the power that this identity can do? Oh, it can only log in, see, and go. Because hello, you just want to log your leave, put in your leave days, put in your do your appraisal, and that's it. That's what we give you. So even though Microsoft has said that you can do this, it's still based on least privilege. What can you do? You must still make sure that this is your foundation. It's very, very important. So when we talk about disgruntled staff, I say to people, say, what power have you given? IT people, when I worked for the bank for 7 years, and I had power to bring down the bank. I had all the rights to bring down the bank. What were the things that were put in place? Before I got to that place, I had to even mature into it. So some things technology would do to it, I had to mature into it, and the organization had to see that I had matured into it. Now, what was the other thing? We had to put controls. So there was two-factor authentication into all the powerful privileges that I had. There were certain things we couldn't do once I was off the network. So I either had to be on VPN, and that's where you see the assume breach. So you need to come and say, no matter what, this activity cannot happen. So I remember in one of the banks I worked, the world is going wireless. Everybody wants to be wireless. The salespeople, the people bringing in money will tell you, I don't have to sit down one place. I want when I stand up and move here, I can still check my distance. It was fine. But what did we do? On the banking application, we made sure that the banking application was never accessible over wireless. That was us saying we are assuming that breach. Network, wireless falls on that network. And we're like, no, it's okay. We've given you for the core banking, we're very sure that it's only if you needed it, you could access it. You could only access it. But we have said that, you know what? It will not be. So you have to actually literally be on the LAN, meaning that you have to plug a network cable. It meant that for you to plug a network cable, you have to be sitting inside the building of the organization, right? And then on that LAN network, we had also done other security things again. So the concept of security is at every layer. Take your zero trust methodology and apply. So for an application perspective, yes, Microsoft is saying you can, but does not mean. So what will you do? Oh, we're allowing. So you will see during the actual integration of a B2C, you need to create like a service account that allows you to do the integration and all of that. Then you begin to put layers of, you still have to hold on to this. But I'm saying that from an identity perspective, you will put 2FA. So it means that anywhere this person is logging in, it will prompt for a second factor authentication. So somebody cannot just because the person knows your username and password, go and take your account and integrate somewhere. It will prompt you for a second factor authentication. So you are the one that will say, oh, we've started doing business with a lot of third-party guys. And yes, because we want it to be easy, we've allowed IT to allow us to do B2C. However, we want to be able to make sure that in the event where anybody's account gets compromised, there's a second factor authentication. So you will go back to the security guys and you will have them enable second factor authentication. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm actually talking in reality.
Yes.
I understand all this, but trust me, Joy, you like you said, even with your monitoring screen and all that stuff, there are times you just skip some things, and you find out that most IT people are sometimes just become so careless. Of course, there's two-factor authentication almost everywhere now, but they become so careless and they say, oh, because this person is, the vendor and he's a super user, he should have this.
No.
You even see them give especially places where they use token as a two-factor authentication, hardware, software, whatever. They give access to those people. So
we're
that's
saying
why
the same
sometimes
thing.
you see some
No,
things when you're doing sampling, audits that you just like, okay, let me just even check what my team is doing. And you see that a particular vendor that has left and the project has ended like 2 years ago, still has, well, maybe not 2 years, a couple of months back, still has an active account. You
Yes,
can every
yes.
day
So
check everybody.
we're saying the same thing. If after a project has closed, a vendor still has an active account, you did not verify everything. You left. You see, this what we're saying to you as a security and compliance person is that don't think everybody is thinking like you. So you're only just validating the importance of this. So what you did was that you went back to verify. You did not trust that they disabled the account. That's the truth. Now, what you're supposed to be asking is that, is there a way we can do this so that the time lag, because work is overwhelming, we all know that there's never enough hands to do security. Never, because the organization doesn't understand the importance. There's never enough hands to do security. So what I will be expecting you to ask is, how do I ensure that the interval where I'm going to verify, that interval, trust is not breached? So because what has happened is that you have created an identity, right? Your guys have given that identity to a vendor. The project has ended. Because remember, we said trust no one. So you are assuming that your guys gave the right identity, but they gave another identity to the vendor. Now the project has finished. And when you came back 2 months after to verify, you found out that, you mean for 2 months this account has been open? What if this guy was using it? So the next thing you want to ask is, how do we ensure that during those intervals, as soon as a project ends, all access is retrieved? As soon as a project ends, all access is retrieved automatically. So that when we come to verify in 2 months, we're only just coming to verify, as the word says, verify that the access really was retrieved. We're not coming to verify and find out that, oh my God, the access was there. That's how you handle the zero trust method. You don't handle it from a place of fear, because the world is moving. We need to allow certain things work so that business can grow. But as security people, we think ahead. So Microsoft is saying we have given. Now, one of the things I will tell, if you're using an Azure environment and you're giving, even if you're using an on-prem environment, one of the things that I did when we had working with on-prem Active Directory and giving, first things, consultants must have consultant access. Even if the consultant wants global admin, it will be a consultant global admin. It's okay. If we get to cases where senior people come down on you because they don't want to listen, their guys have convinced them that it is a full administrator, that's fine. I will never give you full administrator of your colleague. I will give you full administrator that is tied to you as a vendor. That's an identity. I want you. And then when I give you that, because power that oversee me, of course, you'd have put it in an email, and I know that I'm getting that instruction. I will give you. But what's the next thing? I will go and condition, even on the on-prem Active Directory, you can put time based on accounts. I can say this account can only log in from this time to this time. Automatically, the account goes disabled after that time. So I will tell them, your vendor is not going to work in the midnight. Your vendor is not going to sit in their bedroom and connect to our environment from home. If they have to work, they will work during working hours. Now, why did I do that? I know that the SOC team, I cannot force the SOC team to be active at midnight or anything. We all know how night is. Even when you have a SOC team that works at night, night is still night. Sometimes so as a security person, that was my own condition. And then we pushed it to the point we were able to get it to enter into the policy. But before entering the policy, I would not give any consultant access that will work. Now, if the person needed to work over midnight, they would go through VPN. Now, that was the authentication, because it means that for you to go through VPN, you would have come into our network. So that bridge is not an external bridge, it's an internal bridge. And because you're in the internal network, we all know that from a network perspective, remember, network, when you're creating your network, under networks, you're assuming that everything can be exposed. So what do? You prevent bilateral communications, you prevent end-to-end communication, you do all those. Internal networks are more secure than external networks. So when it comes to network technology, you assume that there can be breach. So I'm just saying that it is, what I would recommend you do is ask yourself, what are the things that I am seeing in this organization? Oh, the IT guys are not disciplined. That's fine. How do I help them become disciplined? Oh, they are giving their account. That's all. I will put rules on those your accounts. Your account cannot log in from XYZ place. because I know what your response. That's why it calls least privilege. You need to be able to know what do people want to do. The problem is security people don't even know. They tell you that this person is a vendor doing what? Ask what application, what are the servers he's logging into? If he's going to log into the HR servers, what are the IPs of this server? I want to see that his access is only to this environment. That's what the zero trust is saying to you. The thing is, we don't want to do the work too. So we need to also know that we have lots of jobs to do, and we can only know it when we demand to know what they are doing. It's simple. It's okay. People will always abuse things. It's a human nature. But as a security person, you will always think ahead of them using your methodology. So the B2B is coming to improve on business so that we can get more business, so that the business can make more money. But as a security person, you will come back and say, that's fine. All the applications that we are allowing this, we must have 2FA. And the 2FA, we must do it like this. So you can either say we're doing the number one or we're doing the token one. In some environments, they say we don't want number, we want token. In some environments, they will say number. And you begin to think. I remember in one of the organizations I worked, we were using mobile number. And then the question was, when people lose their numbers, right? What now happens? Somebody, or how do you know somebody will not breach and just call you and say, I lost my number, so that you will put another number. Then the person comes back tomorrow and claim that this. And so we put a process. You don't change people's authentication method number unless it goes through approval. And that approval is whether service desk. So it's okay. We don't want a complex problem, but just log it on service desk. So we know that it came in through the system. So there's no way you're going to log it on service desk if it's not you, because service desk is
Yeah.
internal. So I'm just saying, it's every time we see a gap, we will use the zero trust methodology to bridge it by working with this. It should always be in your head that if it's an identity, we must always verify. Anytime it's identity, there must be verification. And how do we verify? 2FA, location-based. Conditional access will say you cannot log in. Why will an IT administrator that we did not employ to go to China be logging in from China? So we can put conditional access that every global administrator account should not log in from XYZ region. So we can put it, we're a Nigerian company and we are Nigeria, right? Our IPs are Nigeria. So we can say conditional access on global admin. And then IT is saying, I know it must be global admin. I cannot work without global. In fact, boss, if they don't give global admin, this project will fail. It's okay. We create the global admin. We verify explicitly how. We put 2FA and then we put a conditional access that says if this account is logging in outside the Nigerian region, deny. Because you are a staff. There's nothing showing that you're on leave and you went on vacation to America or you went on vacation to Asia. You are in Nigeria. You shouldn't be logging outside Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've reduced our. So that's how to begin to think it. It can be overwhelming. IT people can be annoying. I've been there.
Excuse me, we are here. System admins are here. We are here.
Well, I'm always a system admin.
System admins are here.
Yes, I'm always a system admin, but I decided to catch them and tell them the truth. So it's okay.
So, Joy, thank you. I totally agree with you, and I've been there. I'm where you're talking about. But then it also depends on the organization. There are some organizations where you have security reporting to IT, and that can be crazy. You don't want to work in that kind of organization. So usually what you're saying is absolutely correct. If you have an organization that has security on its own, not reporting to IT, it is perfectly okay. You can do and undo. But when you have security reporting to IT, trust me, life can be miserable. Thank you so much.
I get you. I would disagree because I did security 3 years in a financial institution and I was reporting to IT. And I would tell my boss, I'm not going to go to jail for anybody. I would not go to jail for anybody. So it's either you take me out. I would not go to jail for anybody. So if I see something that is a breach, and for any time a fraud happened, control comes and like my hands, like I will show you. I have told you this is the gap. This is what we need to do. It's okay. Let's live and coast. But I will not go to jail for anybody. I was very clear. I will do my job. I will enjoy the faffing when people want us to faff. But you see jail, I'm not going to go to jail for anybody. So I made sure that You see that one that is my own. So you see that my own global admin account, I will do it. You see that gap that I saw that is in another place, I will flag it, and then we'll all sit down and be coasting. It's in an email, but I'm not going to go to jail for anybody. And it worked for me 7 years. Were there issues, were there fraud? Yes, but nobody's going to. I had bosses who were not even in IT who would defend because they know that Joy will flag it. I will flag it, but it's okay. I understand the politics. You can do it, Oga. I don't have a problem. Let's keep playing politics. But you see me, I'm not going to go to jail for anybody. I will do my job and I'll work out. So those organizations exist, but we're saying that because remember, you're a security professional, not for the organization you are. You're a security professional as a security professional. You want to step out of your organization and speak security. So you need to start living it. It's okay where you are today to box you, but you want to say, I know this is how it needs to be done. I will try to do it here. If it doesn't work, that's fine. But I know that this is how it should be done, because it is not about the organization, it's about the concept of security. And that's why if they take me out of a Microsoft environment and put me in a Google environment, I will still function. I might not know where the buttons are at the first instance, but I will understand because it's the concept. If I see an identity, I need to verify explicitly. So as a security person, I'm asking, what are the conditions we have? If I see a network, I need to assume that there can be breach. I don't want to know. If you take me to AWS, it's the same thing. The actual implementation, I might struggle 1 or 2 days, but I know the concept. All
Thank
right,
you
this,
so
this is really
much.
an interesting class today.
It
Um,
is. You're making me love security.
yes, it's good. Neola is good. That's what security does to you. Your brain begins to think. You can see her head is thinking because you just keep seeing all the gaps that the organization has, and everybody is more interested in making the money. It's good. We make the money, and then that's why when there's a breach, everybody begins to run helter skelter, and then you're looking at them and saying, "But I've seen it all the while. I knew we were going to be hacked. I knew we were going to be this," and they're looking at you. So the only way you can protect yourself, nobody's listening to you. Just keep documenting it. It can be annoying. But when you do security, the truth is you see all of these things and you're wondering why everybody's not seeing it because you're like, people get hacked and I'm like, it's okay. Why didn't you think you get hacked? You're using the public Wi-Fi to do your internet. What did you get? You know. All right, let's quickly rush. We have less time. Concept of hybrid. So remember, we had looked at. Can you guys see my screen, please?
Yes, yes, we can.
I'll just do a quick recap on. We had looked at different identities, right? We have user, device, service principal, and then we've moved to say that Microsoft also has two external types of identities where you have the B2B and B2C. And now we're looking at the concept of hybrid. Before this whole cloud saga, everybody had their Active Directory on-prem or whatever identity management services that they were using, they had it on-prem. Now, as cloud began to happen, you're not going to tell everybody to just shut down their infrastructure and move to the cloud, right? So Microsoft, remember I said that Textiles is taking us to that place where we're not solution centric. However, for this period, we're doing more of Microsoft. So that's why we're speaking of Microsoft Azure Active Directory. But it's the same concept. But narrowing our framework to Microsoft Azure Active Directory, Microsoft is saying that if you have an Active Directory on-prem and you have cloud services, you don't have to have two username and password. You don't, so you see the same, you don't have to worry. At this instance, your on-prem Active Directory is seen as a different infrastructure. It's seen like a customer because your infrastructure is built in your own data center, your own IP, everything. Microsoft is saying it's fine. You don't have to worry about how your guys are going to now access Microsoft Teams. For instance, we all know that back in the days we had Microsoft Link and Skype, and you had to build that infrastructure on-prem. Microsoft has decommissioned it; they are no more using it. So, what do you tell an organization? How should they chat? How should they communicate? They want to use Microsoft Teams, but they still have on-prem applications. They're not going to shut down their data center. So, what does Microsoft say? Let's do the hybrid concept. And that's where we have the Azure AD Connect. This guy is the guy that allows you to do the integration between your on-prem Active Directory and Microsoft Azure. And once you do that integration, all of these guys, your users, your devices would have a seamless sign-on into the cloud services. So as a security person, you want to begin to pay attention to the Azure Active Directory. How is it set up? What are the access? Because remember what we talked about, service account, service. So there'll be a service account that'll be taking this guy to this guy. Does he have the least privilege? You see, I'm bringing back the zero trust methodology. Everything you put in place, take the zero trust methodology and begin to check. So, okay, so now that my on-prem Active Directory that I had locked down in my data center, I am allowing it talk to Microsoft Azure through the Azure AD Connect. I could take the Azure AD Connect as an entity and apply the zero trust methodology on it to be sure that it is following the baseline, verify explicitly, least privilege, like that. I could do that on the Azure AD Connect on its own and be able to say that this connection between here and here will not create a bridge into our infrastructure, because I have made sure that I have applied the zero trust methodology on it. Now with the Azure AD Connect, you can move workload. So you can decide to say, I want to synchronize password hash. So Ope talked about hashing when we were talking about password hash and different ways of bridge. But with the Azure AD Connect, you can seamlessly begin to use your on-prem Active Directory to authenticate to the cloud without doing it. You will not have to create those users again. You won't have to tell them to reset their passwords again. It will integrate those users seamlessly and have them. So as compliance guys, governance guys, if today you still have Azure Active Directory on-prem and your guys have started using Office 365, you want to ask them what form of hybrid method did they use. And I can bet you that they are using the Azure AD Connect. We also have the Azure Federation Services that came out. It's more complex now. A lot of organizations are dropping it. And that's what you want to look at, the security and governance of it. Yep. Any questions so far? Okay.
No.
So
Thank
let's look at authentication methods. So remember when we said verify explicitly, we're talking about the ways you can authenticate, right? Microsoft has different authentication methods. So Microsoft multi-factor authentication and security defaults are two ways you can put authentication methods on an identity. We also have conditional access, which came out is for a higher version, but for baseline Azure Active Directory, you have multi-factor authentication and security defaults. Okay, the multi-factor authentication requires something you know, something you have, or something that you are. Depending on that, that's how we choose to classify it. It's going to require you either something you know, so maybe to say when was your last birthday, or something you have, your authenticator app, or something that you are. What will I use as that one now? It's not coming to my head.
That's fingerprint.
Thank you, or something that your fingerprint or your eye, infrared and the rest. Yes, so that's multi-factor authentication. Security default is just a set of basic identity security measures. So Microsoft tells you to do this one by default. So whether you want to do MFA or not, they tell you not to disable the security default, okay? Because that's the one that allows you use text or call or email. So the security default is what will send a token to your mobile number, or to call your mobile number and give you a token, or to send it to your email. That's the security default. Microsoft enables it by default once you activate the Azure Active Directory. A lot of organizations, IT guys, go and disable it. So even without actively enabling multi-factor authentication, using the Azure Active Directory, because Azure knows that zero trust, it says, I want to verify, it enables a security default. So when you profile somebody and you put their username and password and put a mobile number, that mobile number, when the person is logging in for the first time, you tell the person to verify that mobile number, send a code or make a call or send an email, and then it will embed it as the person's security default means of authenticating. And the good thing is that it cannot be changed except by the administrator. And once the administrator does that, there's an audit trail. Okay. Now, different ways that you can authenticate with the multi-factor authentication. So you will have the password. Then some people will merge password and another additional verification method, which is either your Microsoft Authenticator or your token. And then Microsoft is so heavy on passwordless, where you do the Windows Hello, or use Microsoft Authenticator, or use the FIDO, which is the smart card security key option. Either way, we're saying that when it comes to identity, you want to verify. So it is beyond just username and password. You want to be able to verify. The good thing, Microsoft will tell you password is bad. Yes, because when you say password, unless you now begin to enforce um, password password type mode, you're going to have people do very funny things. You still see administrators put password at password 123. A lot of people still do it. Password 123. They still do very, very generic things. Admin, root. People still do it. Password and put with SMS, good. The SMS and password side, most times the downside to it is if the service provider is not available, then you can't log into that service, especially in our wonderful country, Nigeria, where these things are very unstable. So that's why somebody's going to tell you, but I'm not getting the token, and you'll be thinking that is your infrastructure. No, it's the service provider network that is having issues. So it's good. There's nothing wrong with it, but when it comes to operations, you're going to begin to have those kind of complaints once in a while. Using password and authenticator, like either a token, but like you said, Neil, like you said, in some instances, you have seen administrators take their token and actively give it to somebody, and then you're wondering what the hell is wrong with you. But hey, that's one way of ensuring. What that person doesn't understand is that if that vendor compromises, it's that person that is going to jail, not the vendor. So those kind of people, I leave them to learn the hard way if they if they don't want to hear, because your token, you gave it to somebody, it's actually you. The organization is not going to hear that you gave it to a vendor. But that's also a good method. And then Microsoft is moving to passwordless. So in the advanced class, we'll begin to see how passwordless, especially using the window hello. So the window hello ties that login detail to the device. It matches it. So the moment I go to another device, I can't use that login, because it will say that this is not the device that the Windows Hello. So it helps you lock down people to devices, and that way, if their account is compromised, you can be very sure that you will know, because it will be that password will be used on another device that is not the device. Now remember, we have said device is also a means of identity. So Windows Hello helps you take the user and match it to a device. Okay, when we go on authenticator, like we know, it's number, and then security keys, a unique identity key that has been given to you. When we go to the next class, intermediate class, we'll be seeing this. So Windows Hello would help you users to authenticate to a Microsoft account, an Active Directory account. You can use this in any way, an Azure Active Directory, and then even third party. Why is it safer than a password? Like I said, because it's tied to a specific device during setup, and without the hardware, that pin is useless. So it's a pin-based method that is tied to the hardware. So without that device that matches it, it's not going to allow you going. So that way, because think about it, how many times do you jump on devices? I personally don't like to use so many devices, okay? Because from a security perspective, every time you're logging in, you're dropping your password. So Windows Hello is saying, don't drop your password. Use Microsoft is saying, don't use even passwords. Use a PIN. So if I am on this device today, that PIN is tied to that device. So if I go to another device and I use, so if I forget my laptop somewhere and I say, phone, please borrow me your laptop, I need to log in, and I'm using Windows Hello, whatever, when I want to log in, to ask it to set up my Windows Hello, because it's seen I'm on a new device, and that pin I set up is tied to that phone's device, not my password. The error of password, once you tie it, you leave your password hash on that device. So if somebody for any reason sees a vulnerability on that device and hashes that password, then they've compromised you. So in order to address password hash vulnerability, one of the things Microsoft is pushing us to is Windows Hello. Windows 10 has gotten to the way that it now protects us from password hash. But when you begin to look at security at the last scale, Windows Hello is one of the best way, because even if I forget my device and I have to quickly use anybody's device, I will not worry, because it's not leaving my password. It's leaving that Windows Hello that I created on that device. Now, Microsoft
How
Azure
does
Active Directory. Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
how
Yeah.
does Windows Hello work in a practical sense? Is it like how does it work? The Windows Hello. Does it's passwordless. So how like
It's no, you either use a pin or a mix of numbers and characters. Sorry, you either use a pin or a mix of numbers and letters. So when
Oh.
you want to log in, when you want to log into the device, and
Mm-hmm.
if so in some organizations they are enforcing it. Windows Hello is available on your device today. It's just that you did not use it. You if you see
Okay.
when you were setting up your device to ask if you wanted to use a pin or this thing, you said no. So that's
Mm.
Windows Hello. But in some
Okay.
organizations, they are enforcing it as the authentication method. So when it is enforced, what will happen is that if you wanted to log into another device,
Mm.
that your credential has been forced to use Windows Hello, then
Yes.
it will ask you to set up that pin. So Windows Hello is saying that that pin that you set up is only for that device. If I come to your house for yourself and I say, give me your own device, I forgot my laptop at home and I need to log in. And Windows Hello has been enforced on my identity. When I put in my username, it would ask me for a pin. When I put in that pin, it was that I was using at home, it will not agree and it will ask me to set up another pin. And that one I
Okay.
set up is now tied to your own device.
Okay. Okay.
So I can walk away from your house knowing that I did not leave my password hash on your
On
device.
this system. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I get it. Thanks. LA's hand is up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, is
Uh,
this something close to Authenticator app?
Yeah,
Hello,
yeah,
can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes, I can hear you very well. So Authenticator app is dependent on that you have the app on your mobile device, right? So yes, but Windows Hello is higher than Authenticator app, is more secure than it because Authenticator app is saying that without the app on my phone, right? I cannot authenticate it. If it asks me for my authenticator password, I must look for my mobile device. But Windows Hello is saying it's fine. You can't even remember your this thing. The moment you want to log in into another device you have not logged in before, it will ask you to create a new pin and token. Sorry, a new pin
Okay,
rather.
because I'm trying to take everyone back. Because I had a similar issue. Um, so on my iPhone, I had my Authenticator app, and I had it. I had the token for my Luno account, some other accounts like that. But for some reason, I had issue with my phone, and I had to reinstall, and I forgot that code of my Authenticator app. So I've not been able to have access to those accounts on my phone, but on my MacBook, I can because Authenticator app was not installed on it to access those apps. So I was kind of trying to relate that to what you're talking about, the Windows app.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, what I heard you say is on your mobile device you had an authenticator app that you had
Yes.
linked applications to different applications to your
Yes.
authenticator app. So for instance, I have a
Yes.
Google Authenticator app now, and I have my PayPal tied to it. I have
Yes.
my other platforms tied to it that I use authentication, my website tied to it, right?
Yes.
And then that my phone
Yes.
got spoiled, and I got a new phone, and
Yeah.
I downloaded the
Yeah.
Authenticator app. Are you saying that when you downloaded the
Yeah.
Authenticator app, you cannot see those applications that you linked to it?
No, I could not remember. With Authenticator app, it gives it first one time code like that. For some reason, I can't remember, where it is or where I stored it or
And you
something.
didn't
So
set a recovery on it.
there's no recovery on that
We
Authenticator.
could talk
That's one
about it.
bad thing.
Yeah. Okay, I could
Okay.
look at
All
it
right.
and help
All
you
right.
out. Yeah, after the session.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I hear you say is, in the event where if you're using an authenticator app, so for me, I think you're even further helping validate the value of the Windows Hello. So in those kind of instances, you are stuck. You have to find a way to even get into the authenticator app before you can even get into the application, right? And Microsoft is saying with Windows Hello, it's a pin-based. It's just like your password. But the thing with password is that there has been vulnerabilities on Microsoft operating system doing password hash. So it's saying that it's okay instead of using a password, because even with the Windows Hello, it can be a password. So you can decide to use password 123 in Windows Hello now, but it's saying because it's Windows Hello, it will not work on the next device. So somebody, I remember when someone said Microsoft first of all told us password 123 is not secure, and now they're taking us to password 123. And they said, yes, that's technology. They keep playing with our brain. So they just changed the infrastructure now, and now password 123 is no more insecure if it is using Windows Hello. All right. So the SSPR is called self-service password reset. You want to, like I said, we want to balance security. At the same time, we want to balance security and operations. So Azure Active Directory is saying if in your organization they want people to be able to reset their password themselves, we can allow it. And then you say, oh, that means somebody can breach. Well, there are other things. We will add the authentication method because, like we said, anything that requires identity, we would verify explicitly. But Microsoft is saying that you can enable self-service password resets in Azure Active Directory. So the operations guys can be happy. The business guys can be happy. Someone gets trapped, they can reset their password. They don't have to wait for service desk. But when you're setting this up, you must make sure if you have self-service enabled in any environment, as the security and compliance person, make sure that self-service is tied to an authentication method, right? Because that's what now ensures that that person resetting the password is the right owner. Um, the value of self-service, like we all know, it would definitely help organization to save time, calls, and all of that. But you want to balance the security by using the authentication method, and then you can now enforce that the authentication method should be either the mobile app or the email method. Okay, let's just do we go? What's the time? Oh, how many? We have. Okay, let's just quickly do one more slide before the demo. Any questions so far?
None from me, but I need
Okay.
to drop off now. So, but I'll
Yeah.
catch up on the recording.
All right.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
you're welcome. I know we spoke about it's 10 to 12. This is already 12, but because we started a bit late, we will give you guys like 10 more. I'll just do 10 more minutes and then we take questions and then show you guys the other demo on how to do password protection, how to check for security defaults, and the rest. So we have password protection and management capabilities in Azure Active Directory. Yeah, so you can create a global band password list. You can create custom band password list. So what's the password? You can say that I don't want anybody to ever use things like password 123. I don't want anybody to ever use, you can have those kind of lists and say if anybody is using this kind of password, you say no. We all know that in the dark web, there's a list of exposed passwords. So you can actually take that list and come to your environment and create your custom banners and say all these passwords that have already been published in the dark web as compromised passwords. We don't want anybody to use it in our environment. So once it sees anybody creating it, will automatically flag it that this password is not allowed in your environment. Microsoft Active Directory allows us to do that. Um, and then we can use conditional access. So when I was talking about explaining to you, I said that you beyond authentication, you can now begin to use conditional access to streamline how people use their identities and where they use it from. So conditional access allows things like user group membership. I can say if you are in this user group, do not allow this. So I told us of a financial institution where I worked in, and then the core banking application. If you did not even, if you had no reason to even use the core banking application, so even me in IT, I never could see the interface of the core banking application. The only time I saw the interface of core banking is if I was solving a problem for somebody who had access to the internet banking. But as a user, there was nothing. In 7 years working for that organization, I did not have any reason to log into the application. So if I put that URL on my browser, it will never open. So those are kind of things you can do with conditional access. You can say that if a user that is in this group or this kind of user is that this kind of thing should not happen. So one of the things we did with that was we used the firewall to do that. But it was also saying that if you're in this group and you are trying to call up this URL, deny. Because as far as we were concerned, you don't need to see the core banking application if it was not part of what you needed to use to do your job. So that way we have reduced our level of compromise. It meant that if anybody wanted to compromise the core banking application, first of all, the person will have to be able to even see the login. And that helped us to reduce the number of estates of compromise. We could streamline, where our compromise, segment it and isolate it and say compromise can only happen with this. So conditional access helps you do that. You can say that I don't want administrator's account. I'm a Nigerian company. It's a difference between user. You can say, yes, a user can be in America, can be in Asia, trying our internet banking. That's fine. But as an admin of the application, I don't want an admin to be logging into this application from anywhere outside this location. That's another way you can secure. Because the truth is, most times when people want to hack you from outside, what they do is that they use a VPN. Because they don't want you to be able to identify their real IP, they use a VPN. So we are able to win that fight by using conditional access, by saying that you cannot be able to log in as an admin to this application if you are outside this region, because if you are our staff, our expectation is that you're within this region. If you went on leave, our expectation is that you're not working on our platform when you're on leave. So there are ways, as I said, that when you want to do security, you need to be thinking like them. When they think one, you think two. So conditional access helps us. We can also put conditional and say that if we see XYZ kind of behavior, deny access. So if somebody's risk level moves from low to medium and moves to high, automatically disable. Someone called me yesterday from a company and said, oh, Joy, see the alert I got. And Microsoft has sent that they had seen high volume of suspicious attack on, and then they had blocked their tenants. And the person was like, what does this mean? I said, well, possible things, either high spam, somebody's doing something in your network, but the point is Microsoft has locked you out. Their whole tenant was locked out. So raise a ticket with Microsoft, because at this point, they're the only ones that can unlock you. But then we're going to go here and we're going to be able to see what was happening in your organization so that we can know. But Microsoft even does that. If they see any activity that begins to take your security posture from here to here, they knock you out. So as security compliance people, we should be able to do that. So using conditional access policy, you can say that this user signing is moving from low risk to medium risk. And what are low risk and medium? It could be that the person has changed the password frequently. So if I change my password now, and then the next thing, another 6 minutes, I'm changing my password. Or if I'm logging within XYZ number of times to an application, that's how we know that it is a bot. It's not a human being. A human being cannot put username and password in less than XYZ seconds. So we automatically say, oh, this is a bot. Someone's trying to spam this application. So those are the kind of things that you can use conditional access. And you can do actions like block, or you can do conditional access that says, okay, I will only allow you if. So some organizations will say you cannot access this thing if it is not a domain. So we can begin to think all of this thing. Azure Active Directory is saying it can allow you think security through all these avenues and then put in controls. The only unhappy side with conditional access is that it's not available to, I think it's when you're on the Active Directory P2 license, I think so. That's just the part with it. The default Azure Active Directory that you get just by signing into Office 365 does not give you conditional access, unlike security default and MFA that comes. I think you have to be on P2 or so before you can get it. But most organizations that are already enterprise organizations, they already have this. So it's important that you begin to get your guys to start to use conditional access. So think about it. If you begin to see some of those scenarios really that you're complaining of, look at how we can use conditional access to put it in place. Say that if it's a vendor account, once the vendor account, you should automatically disable it. If this account has not logged in for XYZ number of times, we can think of, let's think of ways that we think the breach can happen, and then we use conditional access to set it up. So that's it. So you don't bother. So if they tell you the consultant must have full access, it's fine, but you must have full access, and then the conditional access must be put on that access, and that's the compensating control that you have put in place. Azure Active Directory also gives you role-based. So remember when we said least privilege, Azure Active Directory is saying that you can give least privilege to people. You can say read only, you can say audit. So even if you have junior people in teams that you say, okay, in your team, you're saying, we don't want to give them full access, but at the same time, we don't want to lock them out. We want them to have an understanding of what we can give them read-only access. You can give them read-only access. The same thing, if you're asking IT to give, IT say, no, yeah, we are not giving control access. We're not giving auditors access. No, they can give you read-only. They can give you audit only. They can give you compliance view, and you can still see everything that IT is doing without being able to make change. So Azure Active Directory allows for that. Okay. So let's look at the identity governance in Azure Active Directory. We call it the identity life cycle. So the first thing is you join the device, you join an identity. So we just showed you how we create, we join. Then the identity moves either through groups, through role, and then the identity needs to leave. How access is removed, and then the person does not have. So as a governance person, this is what you want to do. If you want to take identity and build governance around it, you want to look at how do we onboard, how do these accounts move across the organization, how do we retire it, and how do we ensure that there's no more access. Some organizations will tell you as soon as somebody drops their exit letter on the last day, HR should write to service desk to disable the account. When they disable the account is automatically kept. When they disable the account is kept for XYZ number of days. Before then, the account is deleted. That's the life cycle. Now, inside this life cycle, you want to begin to check things. So if this account is disabled, so this account is disabled, right? So that's how the account is living. What happens to all the groups that this account in the period where the account is disabled? What does disabled mean? Some applications can say disabled, but you are still receiving email. Some applications can say disabled, but you still have a copy of your data on the organization and on the user's device. Some applications can say disable and wipe out. But this governance life cycle will help you begin to know. So when you say join, you to now be okay, receive requests to profile users only from HR. Some organizations will tell you no other person can tell you create a user. It must come from HR to service desk. I remember in my last organization, that was how we put that policy in one of the national institutions I worked. We said nobody should ever call IT to say create an account. If you created an account and there's no service desk ticket tied to it, you are fraud. So you would never get any reason to create an account. It must originate from service desk, and service desk will never take any user. So you see somebody come and say, "My colleague just resumed today. Kindly create the person." We will not answer you. It has to come from HR. And why did we do that? If you got an employment with the organization, HR should have known. HR offered you an offer letter. HR onboarded you, right? So HR should inform IT, create a ticket that this staff is in and this staff needs XYZ access, and this is the person's job role so that we can know the applicable groups to put the person. And so once the person is profiled and gets into the system, that is how we have put control. So now we know that IT will not create any user unless the user. Now, we moved into device. We took it bit by bit, even from a device perspective. Or you cannot join a machine to the domain unless you do this. So the support guys, we looked at, okay, how can support guys not compromise? Maybe they can go and take their personal system, bring it to the office, or they are friends with somebody. The person brought their personal system, they join into the domain. Okay, what do? We look for ways. We said, okay, so that is access. The first role is you bring a device, right? Okay, we can't control how they take the device, but how do we ensure, how is that device giving access? We began to look, we had a network access control in place then. And so for you to be able to join a machine to the domain, because we put machine certificates, you will need to request for access to un-ice your port. So those were the things you put in place. So to do governance, you need to understand the life cycle of how access comes in, how it moves, how you retire it, and how you go back to no access, so that you can begin to put things in place to secure that privilege. Any question on this? Okay. Microsoft has also introduced what they call the access review. Well, entitlement management, first of all, this will help you review. So Microsoft has introduced what we call access review. You can create reviews now automated. So when I was telling you that there are many things that the Azure is doing now that you don't have to manually wait for. So a group can be created and automatically an access review created for that group, whereby you say that every XYZ period we would review these groups and we will see what is in this group. And so, for instance, we had the Finacle group. And in that organization, once you're in the Finacle group, you can see the core banking application. So as a security and governance person, what you want to do is to put an access review on that group, because you wanted to know from time to time who are the people inside this group. The same thing with domain admins. You want to put an access review on domain admin because you want to know from time to time who are the people inside domain admin. You want to look at VPN users. You want to review. So all these forms of entitlement management, access terms of use, Azure Active Directory is saying that they have these functionalities that can enable you manage the life cycle of access, and you can gain visibility and begin to put controls in place. And then lastly, we'll look at the PIM, Privilege Identity Management. A lot of you in your organization probably are using CyberArk. We have CyberArk. We have who else is familiar with another one? So some of these are different privilege identity management. Microsoft has also introduced what it calls the PIM. With the PIM now, for the scenario you painted, consultant, you can say, okay, no, it's fine. You say the consultant must need admin access. No problem. We're going to onboard the consultant using a PIM. With the PIM, the consultant will come in, and then we'd make a request when they come in by clicking a button, and then it will go for approval and to be approved. And as soon as they are done with their work for the X period of time that they are working, once they are done, it will automatically disable it. So we call it just-in-time access. You don't need to give access 24/7. When the person goes home, the person is in his toilet talking with his friends and is logged into your environment and forgets himself and sleep, and somebody logs in, his brother logs in to his laptop and sees that your dashboard is open for your company and is testing the waters. No. So with the privilege identity management, you can manage, you can control, you can monitor access to organization resources using just in time. So you can say, you only need this for now, we will give you. This is the period you need it, we will give you. We are going to approve it for you to give you. We will see notification that you are the one using it. And it allows us to see a history of how many times you logged in and the time you logged in and the duration you logged in. And we can use this to ensure governance. 4 more minutes. Let me see how fast I can be. We also have the Azure Identity Protection. It's one of the Microsoft new stuffs that they are putting in place. So organizations can accomplish 3 key tasks with the identity protection. You can now automate detection and remediation. With the identity protection, you can say, oh, this account is flagging suspicious activity. I want to force that Joy should reset her password immediately. So the account is saying that it has seen this account trying to log in from here and from here, from here. Automatically, to put the account in a forced password reset mode, so that it will ask you for your token, and then you will know that, okay, there's a need to reset your password. You don't have to now wait till the compromise has happened, or wait till the person calls and says that I think somebody was trying. No. Azure Active Directory can now begin to monitor identities and automate, and so we can now configure detections that protection detections and then force remediation. It can also investigate risk, and then we can also export this to third-party utilities. So if you have another platform that you're using for your SIEM, your SOC centers, you can do the integration from Azure Identity Protection to your SOC centers, and then it will be able to put these activities there and flag it on the dashboard. Microsoft categorizes its risk into low, medium, and high. And then for sign-in, it calls it sign-in risk and user identity risk. So it can say that the sign-in mechanism that is seen now is risky, and it classifies as a medium risk. And then is that condition that you can now use to now automate remediation. As an organization, compliance, you want to see risky users, risky sign-ins, risky detections. It's important to pull out this report from time to time. It helps you understand the type of users that you have. Some people are fond of logging into anything. They go to their family vacation, they pick up anybody's device and log. They don't know. People have Trojans on their device, people have backdoors, they don't care. and then they leave their logins there, and those accounts are trying to authenticate from time to time. So you want to see this kind of reports, risky users, risky sign-ins, risky detection reports, because it helps you understand the kind of users and their behavior within XYZ period, especially as we know that during holidays, during things like Black Friday, all those times, those are times that user activities are being compromised the most. So these reports becoming very handy during those periods. Okay, and that brings me to the end of, we've looked at Azure Active Directory, the services, the identity types. We've explored the different authentication capabilities, looked at access management with conditional access role-based, and we've looked at identity protection governance and the capabilities of AD identity protection. Any question? You guys have been wonderful today. It was a very interesting class. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please drop in the Teams chat. We will send you, I need us to confirm if we've created the demo, if you need assistance on how to access the demo, so that we take you through, because from module 3 and 4, we begin to go into the dashboard of the security and compliance so that you can begin to see data. If there are no questions, thank you for your time, and we can call it a day.
Thank you, Joy. The chat was not enabled, so
I really need to-
participation. But it's okay.
Any other question? Lola, Mr. Larry, Okpe?
None. Thank you very much for this session. It was insightful.
All right. Thank you all. Have a
Hello,
wonderful
Troy.
day. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the class today was very technical, and I really enjoyed so much about it. Thank you very much. And maybe I'm looking forward to the next class. Yeah.
Yes, so we will be having the next class, and Okpe will be taking us through, and it becomes more interesting, because the truth is, eh, security is technical. No matter how you want to speak the English, security is technical, because you need to be able to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So as we go to module 3, Okpe will be taking us also through some deep dive, and we'll be seeing. And the thing is, you begin to appreciate and understand some things now that are happening in your organization, and you can go back. And for those who don't have where they're working, you begin to know what you want to look out for and where you can build competence and strength on. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and thank you so much.
Thank you, and you too.